Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello, welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. It is September the 14th, 2014. Oh, 9.
Too bad there's not 14 months in the year. We could have had a 14 going.
Yeah.
Sadly, it'll still be another 85 years before we can repeat that way.
Huh. Well, this is iteration number 106 of the podcast. Thank you all listeners for sticking with us so far and joining us yet again for another week of conversation.
Talks about fantasies and fictions and the various tangents we get off on.
That's right.
I'm Ryan Kirkby, co-host extraordinaire, and to my side here is host Primus, Josh Treleaven.
That's me. Hey.
Yeah, it's your new title now. You're host Primus.
Okay, sounds good.
You've been upgraded. That's official.
Yeah, I should just get a new title every week. We should both.
I can dig that. Yeah.
Okay, so let me. What have we been up to this week?
I think we got a little bit of news first.
We got news.
This is for everyone, in with the D&D, concerned about 5th edition. This is a reminder. If you go to the right gaming stores and do your proper pre-order, come the 19th, you will be able to get your copy of the Monster Manual. Not all stores have it. Those who are doing like the Dungeons Encounters sort of stuff will be having it. So consult your friendly local gaming shop, see who's got it when. Do the pre-order, do the wait and see sort of thing if you want it. But from everything I've been told, it's a very good player's guide, as well as a Dungeon Master's guide to exactly how many things are out there to kill you. Wonderfully illustrated.
The Monster Manual,
yep.
Yes.
Players read it, Dungeon Masters read it. That way you learn.
Yeah, well, and some of those animals you can later get as mounts or animal companions or...
Sometimes just an ally.
Celestial companions.
Not everything's going to kill you. But let's face it, it's D&D. Eventually, something's going to happen, and you'll have to kill it.
I'm going to have to look in the Player's Handbook. I bought myself a copy of the Player's Handbook,
Congratulations.
but I haven't read it all the way through. I like the art so far, basically.
It is magnificent art.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I was thinking, I have to check now when I get back whether the Paladins have a horse, the way they did in early other editions.
I always liked giving the Paladins an ability to run for like long stretches of time wearing armor.
Yeah.
Because,
let them be their own horse?
Well, effectively, yeah. But if I recall right, I had a nice little house rule where you don't get your weird little magic poofing horse that comes in whenever you want it. Instead, you can run for a long time, and those around you can keep pace. So you're like a marching squad moving quicker and faster. And it meant that everybody in the party got to benefit from, the equivalency of this paladin steed. And, it really gave the paladin its own, very militaristic style.
I guess so, yeah.
Because, mounted combat is very militaristic. There are very few people, get into fights on horses, doing anything else.
Yeah.
But that said, a bunch of people marching in unison very quickly, across the plains, well, that just speaks to me, of elite, military personnel.
Yeah, well, I think the Marshal had do you remember the Marshal class from...
Yes.
It first appeared in Miniatures Handbook.
I quite liked it. Miniatures Handbook was a little unbalanced, we'll say, in some regards.
Yeah, but Marshal class was pretty good.
It was, I think, a stellar example of adding a new class that brings something extra to the table without being overpowered.
And so I'm thinking that maybe that sort of ability might be more appropriate for the Marshal. In fact, I think he did have a speed boost ability.
Yeah, but with the paladin sort of thing, it worked, for those in a specific range, like allies sort of thing.
Okay.
And it worked over long distances. I'm not sure whether the marshal...
Is this something that was actually you saw somewhere?
No, that was a house rule
I
had made up for paladins. Just to keep them a little bit different and have more abilities that the entire party can benefit from. Because I noticed with a lot of abilities, monks and all that sort of thing, it's like, oh yeah, so the monk takes half damage falling, everyone else is basically dead on the ground. Nice going, monk. Your friends are, you just let them fall. So, a monk, helping say, oh, grab hold of, the vines, or, slide like this, and then everyone okay, I think I can do it for this time, and then they take the half damage, would have been a little bit better off, and it makes it much more of a team base in my perspective. Something I noticed 3.0, 3.5 was very lacking, because, as I've said before, a lot of times it seems like 4 people attacking independently just in the same area at the same time, as opposed to a cohesive team.
Yeah, that's true. And like D&D, I think it's supposed to be that sort of like one character gets targeted at a time, so that, oh, well, the monk fell down a pit trap, or, oh, well, this happened. But a lot of times what happens in reality is, oh, everybody gets hit by the poison, everybody roll fortitude saves, the whole party. So I think, as a DM, it might be a good idea to, if you see that happening, to say, well, okay, restrict that to 1 or 2 characters. And if the players are smart, they can put that, the guy with the high fortitude save where he's likely to get hit by the trap.
So if we step on this series of panels as we go down the corridor, then poison darts come out. So we will just have the monk with his perfect body, and poison immunity, just kind of do a blocking sort of thing as we all walk, in, like a one solid row down the hallway. That way he's getting hit by all the darts and nobody gets poisoned.
Yeah, sure.
Which is, sure, that's teamwork, hooray! On the other hand, it's kind of, like one person's ability, as opposed to like an entire group gaining a benefit.
Yeah.
I was always big on trying to find different ways to get more group benefits out. A lot of wizard spells were very selfish in that regard, too. Oh, feather fall, now I'm not falling at all. Oh, look at me, and oh, no, you can't look at me, you're face down bleeding on the ground.
Yeah, but I think the game gets a little bit... yes, there are times when you definitely need something to affect the entire group, but I think the game is not as fun if it's just we all do the same thing. Like, we all roll our saves now, and, Joe gave us all a bonus, so we're kind of okay.
But that's one of the only redeeming features I ever had for the Bard class, was they gave everybody bonuses. They were very much a team player, mostly because, you can't put them up front. They're too squishy. They really can't do much for ranged combat. The best they can do is bonuses for everyone.
Yep.
Which I guess is, in my perspective, a flawed execution for the Bard.
Maybe. It's okay, but yeah, I can see why. Like, I remember playing Bards, and it's not as fun to say, well, instead of rolling my attack, I give you +1 on your attack, and the fighter often is like, well, thanks, but I've pretty much got this covered. I
get a bump every level. I'm doing pretty good. If I can't hit the creature, we are doing something wrong here.
And then when you really need it, you're also adding in do I have high ground, or okay, and you're adding all those little things.
One of the things, by the way, I think you'll notice when you're reading in the Player's Handbook for the 5th edition, is that bards can do other stuff while they're giving a bonus. Okay. So they can, instill mediocrity, because they're a low-level bard. That was great, by the way. Yeah. So, here's some mediocrity bonuses for you. But yeah, they can do that as well as do other stuff. And I think that's nice because that helps make them a little bit more versatile rather than I tap my bard to give everyone a +1/+1 bonus to go over to the Magic the Gathering sort of mentality. So yeah, that's what I've been trying to do back in 3.0, 3.5. I am quite happy seeing some of the new classes and how they seem to be interacting. Focused, specialized roles, but still needed as part of a full team. So I can dig it. But
cool.
Yes, so you got the PHP, hooray! Welcome to the herd. One of us.
Yeah. Well, I usually buy the core books every time a new edition. Well, usually being 3, 3.5, 4, and now 5. I actually skipped Essentials though. So.
I've been told Essentials was skippable.
Okay.
So, no big loss? Hooray.
Yeah, and now we're on to a new edition, so
yeah.
we never have to talk about it again.
Unless we're referencing it as something like to not do.
Although I like to think that there are probably groups out there who are like, no, we're 4th edition purists. We're sticking with 4th edition, the original edition.
From what I've seen on Facebook, there are some people sticking with 4th because it's the style they like.
Yeah.
And all the power to them. If they're all happy with it, go for it. I'm riding the wave of the future, man.
Yeah. Cool.
Aside from the PHB, anything else you've been doing this week in the realms of fantasy?
Yeah, a couple of things. Since we're the Simulationist, I finally got back into it. I used to play The Sims 1 or 2, I can't remember, years ago. But the latest Sims, so I've been playing the
I've
Sims.
heard some mixed things about that. Some stuff they took out that people thought was going to wind up being an essential part, and some people are like, oh, I don't need this sort of thing at all. It doesn't make me happy.
Well, I haven't missed out on anything yet. I'm just playing the game, like I don't really remember much about what I used to have, so whatever they're giving me now is like, okay, yeah.
Maybe
I'll
that's
play
the
with
best
that.
way to do is take a little time off between the sim versions, just so you don't feel like but there's so many more content stuff going on in the other one. I hear it is a bit of a resource hog. Have you noticed anything about that?
I was worried about that in the beginning. My computer is
it's not bleeding edge new.
7 years old.
Which is not bad. I mean, computers are lasting longer than they used to.
Yeah. So I don't expect like the super smooth performance, and basically every once in a while I get a little lag spike, but that's a little hiccup. But I think that's more my computer than the game itself.
But you're able to run it very very well.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and I haven't played around with the graphics at all. It's just on whatever they ship with it. Like, well, not shipped anymore. It's downloaded now.
I think ship is still a term. It's just taking a bit more of a artistic flair to it. Okay. Just like, you don't ship it through a ship anymore, Yeah, you ship it through, like trucks, and then all of a sudden it's through the various pipes that make up the internet.
Yep, that's true. So let me see. So, yeah, I am enjoying it. How many dwarves out of... I give it 11 out of 13 dwarves.
Did they... actually get rid of ghosts? Can you no longer kill a person and have them with their urn haunting the place?
Well, I haven't seen a ghost yet, but I don't know.
You haven't actually tried killing the Sims, have you?
I had one Sim die in a fire, but then I just basically quit that house. So I don't know, like, I still see her on the menu, like of the, you go to the neighborhood and I can hover over the place and it's like, oh, there's her happy blue face. She was a blue girl.
Oh. Dabu-dee, dabu-da.
Like in Avatar.
I was just referencing, the Eiffel 65. So
okay, yeah. So I don't know actually what became of her, but she did die, and the Grim Reaper came, and as soon as the Grim Reaper came, then it was like gave me an option. It's like, oh, she's dead, game over, and it's like click OK or whatever. So I just clicked OK, and I just went. So I don't know. Maybe she can come back to life. Is what I'm thinking.
Ooh, zombie.
Well, there's a picture of her, so maybe you just get another chance at it.
Oh, it's like most MMOs. It's like a 6-minute respawn timer.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I didn't go back to her. I've been trying to be a farmer, and I've tried to because you can grow fruit and herb gardens and stuff. So I've been farming. As much as I hate farming. That's apparently the direction I've chosen to go. So that, one of my Sims has a job. But the other one is
real job, not a farmer.
Like a job that you go to.
Okay.
But I actually like the Sims has a few career options that are like, oh, you could be an artist and just sell your paintings. So
well, that's the thing is I have the old Xbox One copy, and there was basically a loophole in there where it's like, don't bother going to work, just level up your carving tiki artsy skills, and then just sell little lawn gnomes for like $200 a pop.
Yeah, exactly. So you can do that with fishing and farming and like herb gardening and everything else. You might even be able to sell meals. I'm not sure how that works, but
that's okay. That's what you do in Dwarf Fortress to make a lot of money. You just grind up a bunch of horse fat and wheat. chop up mints, both of them very well, sell them for 200 Dorf bucks a meal.
Yeah. And I'm thinking you can also throw parties, and you can, like, I have a bar in my house, in my Sims house, so, like, I can serve drinks and stuff. I haven't been able to sell drinks yet, but I'm thinking that I might, I'm still learning how to play the game, like what all the options are, but I'm thinking I might be able to also just run like my own club.
That would be pretty nice. And yours has got the good stuff where you got multiple levels, right? Not just everything all on one vertical or one horizontal level.
Well, it's a very small house right now, but yes, I do plan on getting a second floor.
Well, that's good because the version I played, on the Xbox only had one level. No matter how big your house was, you only had that one level. So the concept of you, having like a club going on, down on the base of the floor, and then living the sweet life up above, makes for a nice little mental image there. I dig it. I think you're doing the right choice.
Playing The Sims. The other thing my adventures in simulations was I went back to interactivity, which we have done 2 or 3, 4 podcasts ago. We were at interactivity.
Very nice place. I recommend at least going there and taking a look at their options. And then spend a lot of money. Get some games, play some stuff.
Yeah, it's only $5 to play for. That's all you have to spend is $5, and you have access to their library for the whole day. And you can play as many games as you like. I think you can go in and out, but I guess they just do it by remembering your face. They don't have hand stamps or anything.
I guess it's kind of like when you go some of those fast food places, where they allow free refills. You don't just go outside and come back in 10 minutes later and you keep doing that over and over again. That's kind of like a faux pas.
Yeah, and it's more like what do you call it? It's casual, I guess. At the
if you do have to leave, sort of thing, just I guess mention them. It's like, is it okay if I go for a smoke break, and that way they'll remember you, sort of thing,
Yeah, I think that's how they do it. I don't know. I've never actually left in between and tried to come back.
Well, that's the thing I found for a lot of people is if you just make a quick mention, is it okay if I head on out to make a phone call and in privacy or have a quick smoke break or whatever excuse you want to use? Then they're like, okay, yeah, sure. And then that way, when you come back and you go, thanks, yeah, everything's going fine, they'll remember you. It's like, oh yeah, that's right, that's that person there. You just needed to go out and make a phone call or it wasn't so loud.
We're gonna I think we're gonna have somebody who works there actually maybe come on the podcast. Does that sound? Yeah.
Talk about some unofficial rules and how the whole thing plays out.
Yeah, they can tell us.
It is a bit of a different paradigm than I think a lot of people might be used to for stores and establishments.
Yeah. So I was saying I went there, and it was Game Designer Night that I have to go on. I've been there a couple different times, but I wanted to mention Game Designer Night because I brought my little card game that I've mentioned a couple times.
Hexlandia.
Yes, the Hexlands game,
You might have to double check that. Hexlands might actually be taken as a product thing of the Deadlands, the weird Wild West sort of thing.
Could be. Well, currently it's called Hexagon Conquest is the current working title of the game. It may still change. Hexagon Conquest seems a little generic, to be honest. But anyways, that's...
Hey, so does the fantasy game, but that's what Gary Gygax was going to call it before his wife suggested Dungeons & Dragons.
So I went there, and there was half a dozen people there, pretty cool people. I guess I'm not really going to discuss too much about the things I saw. Cause
NDA disclosures and all that.
I didn't sign anything, but it's sort of unofficial. It's like...
the Will Wheaton don't be a dick rule, right?
Yes, yeah. But anyways, I just wanted to say that I went there, and it was very cool, and what else?
Enlightening?
And I got, really valuable feedback from the people there, on my game, and, they're right away they're like, oh, well, I could do this and this, and I could do this strategy, and they're like, oh, but I can't because you have the cards this way, and I'm like, well, I can change that.
Yeah. That's why I'm still in pre-alpha testing right now.
So that's been my week. Oh, and I played Minecraft too, of course.
Well, of course, yeah.
Did I told you about my dye farms? So I now have I have 7 dye rooms, each with generating.
And that's just
dye.
For those who weren't paying attention last week. That's dye as in to change the color of an object, not dye as in they kill you.
Oh, that'd be great. Like 7 different ways to die and like execution chambers for the player.
Like you hit the switch here and it winds up flooding the entire room with water and you drown.
Oh, that'd be great.
Well, you put that on the other side, die rooms and dying rooms. Now, if only there was something useful you could do, like leave a corpse behind so that you could harvest your own self.
Yeah.
Well, if you're a modder and you have an idea for what to do there, go for it. I was right, yeah, you could leave like your own head behind, your little Steve head behind when you die. You collect 3 Steve heads and you make like a Wither Steve. Where you go from there, that's up to you, man. I'm just spitballing some ideas here for you. You got to take it the rest of the way.
What does Wither Steve do? I guess he mines and he crafts. he
mines and he crafts flesh.
Well, I was thinking like Wither Steve would be like just a super powerful version of Steve. Maybe he'd make like little houses or something.
No, wait. You've got the whole bit with the rotten flesh stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
You put the rotten flesh stuff in. He moves stuff like the Enderman, and he puts the flesh blocks together in the right way, and he puts the pumpkin on the top, and bam, he creates a villager.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that.
He's how villagers came to be.
Yeah.
The villagers are his flesh golems. Bam, man.
Cool. Well, that's about me.
There's a nice mod for anyone out there who wants to go for it. Just get Josh's stuff on flesh blocks and woo, flesh golems for everybody.
What about you? What have you been up to?
I actually didn't play any Minecraft this week. I've been rather busy. Doing a lot of free typing because I've been looking up some more stuff for the tri-stat system. Like, okay, how does this character represent? How do I work this concept around? Throwing some ideas out, getting new stuff as I go.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might want to sit down, watch the RoboCop movie. Maybe the first one, maybe the second one as well. Maybe the redo that they did. Was it earlier this year or was it last year?
I don't remember.
The one they did recently. Maybe I want to get a hold of that and watch it. And like maybe stat up RoboCop sort of thing and see how powerful is he really.
Mm-hmm. And tri-stat. Huh. Yeah.
Well, it's a nice measure of power because it may very well be something like RoboCop is, very awesome and cool and all that, especially if, back in the day, when he was like, oh my goodness, this is so future high tech, but it might be that something like Bender from Futurama is much more powerful than he is in terms of practical abilities.
Oh, Bender versus RoboCop.
Bender versus RoboCop versus Inspector Gadget, because I'm still working on him. I'm looking at Gadget, I'm looking at his stuff, and I'm like, okay, no, he's really bad at driving. Can't have him with any, motor, vehicle skills. Keeps knocking over trash cans every time he pulls out of the laneway. And he keeps talking on the phone while driving. I'm not going to give anyone ranks if they're doing that.
Who does?
Inspector Gadget. He'll be like driving the Gadget van. Oh, no, it's a top secret, Gadget phone. Pull out the Gadget phone, he'll be talking while he's driving.
Naughty.
And that was years before anyone really had car phones. So Gadget was showing like the horrible driving skills of the future.
I don't know. I feel like there was a period of time when it was sort of socially acceptable to talk on a cell phone while driving.
Maybe when it was so rare a thing, people would still look at you and go, "Ooh, look at what he's got."
Yeah.
But any which way you slice it, it has been distracted driving.
Yeah.
But one of the creatures
Gadget.
I was working on, sort of thing, as a concept, because I like to see an ability every once in a while. So, I haven't made any use of this type of ability. So, like, how do I put it together and how do I use it? And that's how I learn the system a little bit better. I play with it. So, I'm working on more stuff for, like, horrible monsters to throw at things and, and all that sort of thing. And I'm looking at it, it's like, oh, this one, I think it's got a good concept, and it's got, some classical, literary, connections and all that sort of thing. And it's like, okay, now I'll see what, I'll do a quick Google image search for some stuff and see what, comes up. Is there anything, like, I can latch this onto? And it turns out it's like, oh, wait, people have a fetish about that one. I won't go into detail as to what it is, but, I suppose by and large everything's a fetish to someone. But this is apparently an established and developed fetish. I'm like, oh, do I really want to keep working on this sort of character concept for this creature? Because now it's like anything I do or write about involving this creature is going to, get somebody off, and I don't know if I want to do that.
To be honest, that sounds great to me.
I mean, sure. I mean, getting a reaction out of your listening, audience, that's hey, thumbs up, woo. But on the other hand, it's like, oh, that really wasn't what I was going for. Yeah. But it's there. It's an established thing. I'm like, oh, according to this creepy artwork in the bottom corner, this has been around for 7 years. This is not a flash in the pan thing. Oh. So I'm gonna have to sit down and think about whether the squickiness of others is going to dissuade me from coming up with what I think to be interesting character concepts.
Okay, well, I suppose, good luck with that.
Well, as the saying goes, personal growth is painful, so, I'm going to have to sit down and meditate and think about, do I really want to go down this road knowing others are going down it for other reasons?
All right.
On the other hand, I suppose, as I said, everything will get somebody off.
Yeah,
there are people out there that
are 34.
Well, they're very well established people that I think vampires are incredibly romantic. So I can't even write a concept for a vampire. So it's like, oh, there we go. Yeah. I bet you somewhere out there is writing a story about a sparkly mummy.
Ooh, sparkly mummy.
Yeah.
Somebody write that down.
Heck, if you think you're a good enough author to pull it off either straight or as a parody of the Twilight series, sparkly mummies and all that sort of thing.
Sparkly mummy. I like
Rocket. It. Oh, and because all the stuff that they put into the body sort of thing, they have fun smells he smelt of cinnamon as he walked down the hallway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do, the Twilight books, they mention the smell, although I don't think they say what it smells like, but the vampires, they love the smell of Bella. They all go crazy.
Yeah, I really dig the smell of ribs myself. That's the smell of delicious food.
Well, exactly. I think that's how it is. Although for vampires, it's a mix of food and sexual desire, and so yeah, because they're vampires.
Yeah, that wasn't just with Stephanie Meyer. That goes back to Anne Rice and even further back than that. Vampires are apparently very erotic.
Actually, probably before Bram Stoker, vampires maybe weren't quite so sexy.
They were basically ghouls that focused on the blood as opposed to eating the flesh.
Yeah, because at some point they would have been just basically monsters.
They were corpses that came up out of the grave and then killed their loved ones, the ones they loved in life. Mm-hmm. So if your family members are dropping around you because someone died and they're coming back as a vampire and you're healthy, that means they really didn't love you. That's harsh, man. You can't even go up there and talk about them because they are a ravening, bloodthirsty monster. That's harsh.
Yeah.
Harsh to know you weren't really loved. They were faking it. But yeah, at some point, the concept of a vampire and a ghoul, they were pretty close.
Yeah.
Creature from the grave, and one ate flesh, one drank blood, and then they kind of diverged. Ghouls stayed horrible and messy, whereas vampires got sexy and urbane and, aristocratic.
Yeah. And I think Bram Stoker's Dracula had, hypnotic powers, and he would, seduce women or something like that. Didn't he have a harem or something like that?
Well, he had the brides of Dracula sort of thing. It wasn't just women. I mean, he seduced, effectively seduced, what's his face, Renfield.
Yeah.
Into becoming a raving madman who ate bugs. It's still life force. It still counts. You just got to start small. Which, really is kind of weird. It's like, oh yes, he eats bugs for their life force, and that's, really creepy and dangerous. And it's like, well, I had...
fried chicken.
Yeah, I had chicken earlier this week.
I ate it for its life force, technically.
I ate it for its deep-fried skin rather than life force. But if, frying life force turns it into crispy skin, oh, buddy.
A side effect, a little protein got in my stomach and then was distributed to my muscles. Okay.
But, Renfield's eating bugs. Are bugs closer to the wellspring of life than chickens, pigs, and cows? Because they're wild bugs as opposed to the domesticated animal?
Interesting thought. Maybe, I would think, the wellspring of life, to me, as a person who sort of knows a little bit about like a tiny bit about evolution, it's like, oh, the wellspring of life is like single-celled organisms, or like slime, or
well, I would put
mold.
the in this case the wellspring of life is to be truly at the essence of what it means to be alive. In which case, single-celled organisms, they're background noise. They're like nothing, because they really don't do anything that really makes them feel alive. They're just existing for the sake of existing and procreation. Whereas something like a wolf could feel the adrenaline and the hunt, as sort of thing.
Okay.
As it takes down a deer, in the moonlight, sort of thing. Oh, and all that, fun stuff. And so you could see like a creature like a werewolf truly being, at the font of life itself. Whereas, like the average person living in a city, we can say is kind of like a cow or a pig, a little removed. And are they really living? Is getting drunk on the weekends, and then having a bad hangover the rest of the weekend, is that really living? Or is that just an excuse to like a false, life?
Well, what, they don't have a job or something?
Well, they're working throughout the rest of the week. That's how they can afford the booze on the weekend.
Yeah, but they don't care about their job, so they're just, turn their brain off while they're at work.
They're just, like a zombie at work sort of thing.
Yeah.
Are they truly alive? Does this mean is Renfield eating the bugs the same as Dracula feeding on people living in cities? It's just like a way to just enough to get by. It's not really great stuff.
I don't know.
Whereas if Renfield wanted to go for something like we'll say a deer, it's something that's socially acceptable to hunt and yet can be considered wild, free, and truly know the zest of life in its primal glory. Meanwhile, Dracula has to go hunting, let's see, maybe werewolves, maybe outdoor hunters sort of thing. Something that really gives a good fight, as opposed to, yes, master, now I expose my neck for you because, you have broken my weak will. I don't believe Bram Stoker actually planned on equating bugs to people living in the city for, what it means to be truly alive.
I guess maybe you could say like cockroaches or something like that.
But if you're just starting school sort of thing, and you're going to going into a lit class or something, and you got to psychoanalyze, a novel of your choice, I think I just gave you a pretty darn good idea. You read the book, and make a couple good connections there, plot everything out. It's almost a guaranteed A. The teacher's going to think you are deeply insightful. So you're welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
As I was going about my stuff this week, I did some interesting research on deep sea things. What's it like to live deep underwater, where you really don't get any light at all? And
what's it like for a person?
What's it like for the animals that live down there? And at what level under the water do fish no longer really need eyes? And it turns out when you go deep down, not where it's completely black, but deep down, you get a lot of fish going phosphorescent and glowing, because it's rather hard to see a mate. So they'll do it as the equivalent of the peacock's plumage. It's something that is really noticeable and kind of dangerous, but hey, it gets you the ladies. Meanwhile, some have an interesting phosphorescence only on their belly, so that when a predator is looking up towards the sky, they don't see a black spot where a fish is swimming. They see the same amount of light from the phosphorescent belly, and so the fish is effectively invisible to the predators underneath it, which is pretty groovy, I think. That's kind of awesome.
I do like that thought, yeah.
And also, as it turns out, red down there is the same as black. Due to how light shifts through the water, red is the same as black, so you get a lot of black and red colored creatures down there. And it's ooh, kind of goth metal style going on down there, Mr. Fish.
Yeah, well, the bottom of the sea has always been rich ground for the imagination, that's for sure.
And that's what I think I like reading about that, is okay, now it has to go down even deeper, and it's it is so little nutrients. The fish down there live the same length of lives as us humans, which is why it's so nasty to do the dredge, hunting for the fishing industry there.
Yeah.
Because the fish don't replenish their numbers annually or every 3 years. It's like the same rate of people. So if you're going to dredge the thing, you're going to dredge once per human generation. But yeah, they're very, very patient feeders down there. Very, very decent predators. They wait for something to come by, then they eat. And then they go back to waiting, because doing anything else takes a lot of energy. You want to go up higher up in the water column, you got to fill up that fish bladder of yours, and that takes a lot of energy. So they just wait. They play it silent and long term. And then bam, they strike, and then it's back to waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's as best as we've been able to determine. There's a very hard time studying them because they blow up when we bring them up to the surface. Pressure differences.
Yeah. Well, and I was saying about humans because it's possible to go down in a little submersible, yeah, like James Cameron did not long ago.
Oh yes. But that's the thing is you only get to see little glimpses of it when you're down there.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas what some of the scientists have studied is very interesting biological things, like midway down where things are just kind of gloomy dark. The fish there are really dense because that pressure. But you go even deeper than that, and the fish they fill up a lot of the area in them with water, so they're naturally balanced. They become very jellyfish-like. They no longer have well-developed, livers or anything. They just kind of everywhere. They just kind of get all mushy. And that's a natural adaptation for everything down there. So it's not like, oh, awesome creatures, like deep sea squid, battling, the whales of immense size. I mean, that's technically happening. And some of the best thing that can ever happen to a fish down there is a dead whale sinking to the bottom. But by and large, it's just creepy, jellyfish-like things and long-term weight predators.
Cool.
Very alien stuff. So I was learning about that, and I enjoyed that in part of my research.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to use it for anything? I don't know. But you know what? I really enjoyed learning about it. Because now the deep depths of the ocean that frightened the pants off of Lovecraft, not so frightening to me. I have a little bit of knowledge. I know. I got a chance to watch a good couple movies this week. I had a little time to myself earlier on. The wife and child were off at some kid's birthday party. I wasn't able to attend because I was working at the time, so I got home. Hey, I've got some food with me. I've got the house to myself.
Nice.
So what I do, sit down, and there's nothing good on TV. So I say, you know what? No. I am here by myself. I'm going to watch a gory horror slasher amazing movie. Something I can't normally watch because I don't want to frighten my little daughter. And so I look around quickly. Oh, hey, Cabin in the Woods. And I'm watching that, and I'm thinking, okay, from the perspective of like a tabletop gaming, who are the players in this situation for the Cabin in the Woods? We're going to, I guess, technically spoilers. If you haven't seen it, go see the movie. Rent it, steal it. Buy a copy, get it. It's a good movie. It'll redefine how all the other horror movies you've ever seen play out. And so I'm thinking, who are the players in this sort of thing? If this was a game.
Okay.
And I suppose the immediate answer is, you're the kids going up there, the college students going up to the Cabin in the Woods.
Well, they're like characters. They're like if it's a board game, then those are the pieces, something like that.
Or a tabletop board game, whichever one, you want to go. That's the immediate answer. And then I'm like, but is that really fair? I mean, effectively, what they are all supposed to do is die. The purpose of them is to go up there and get killed. So
is it?
Would you like to play a game where it's like, okay, it's a guaranteed mortality sort of thing, so we're going to see how long you can survive. Would you be okay with a game of that concept?
I have played games like that. Arkham Horror? The Arkham board game, whatever it is.
They have very, very low chance of surviving even, an hour gameplay, I suppose?
Yeah.
And some people just don't see that, like the no-win victory sort of thing. There's no victory condition to win. It's just, play for as long as you can until you lose.
Mm-hmm.
Dwarf
Fortress?
Yeah, that's their motto. Losing is fun. And so I'm thinking, I guess you could try and angle it so that you have a very entertaining death sort of thing. But it's that doesn't really seem right for most of the tabletop stuff I've played. So it's like, wait, what about the Buckner family? The murder, pain, kill zombies that they have there, the Buckners as they're called.
Mm-hmm.
What if you played them? It's like, and then all of a sudden, these foolish young people have called you back from beyond the grave. Now you must kill them. Does that sound like an entertaining game to you?
Probably just as entertaining.
To kill is to be killed, right? Alright, and then then you have the administrators, orchestrating the whole thing. Could they be considered the players?
Well, I was thinking about that. I don't know. I don't like unless you actually have them running around, because the point of a game is to actually sort of control someone who's sort of doing something. And if you're the administrators,
much more, active, doing something as opposed to passive. Like, okay, we turn on the gas that makes people horny, so we pump 10% more of that, and we make sure his weed is doped up here. That's a bit more of a game master sort of perspective.
Yeah.
So it doesn't lend itself well, so we can rule them out as
well. I think so. I mean, I don't want to necessarily say no.
It would be much harder to set up and play through, a very much more niche audience sort of thing.
Well, yeah, and like if you have those guys doing, it's like, okay, I don't know if you have a dungeon master or if we're making this a role-playing game or a board game.
Let's make this for the administrators. It's a board game, so you got to move around the board, get the cards, sort of thing, get everything set up so that. On the inside of the board, there's a situation where you've got like the sacrificees versus the monsters, and it's like, okay, I play, what was the name they called it? It was basically the horny gas or thing that they pump
okay,
out,
I don't know.
It sets up for the one scene, where nudity shot, and lure the people out to stupid situations, and you got to play the card right to get them into, isolate them out here, and then, it's like, okay, and then I play sneaky zombie card, and the zombie's able to move up into position, and slice kill.
Okay, that sounds kind of fun. Do they have motivations, though? Like the people in the office? Like, are they working together? Is it a cooperative game?
It would wind up being a cooperative game set under a time limit. Did you ever play the Nightmare game?
No.
Okay, the premise of Nightmare, and I have it, so, if you ever want, I suppose sometime we can try it.
Okay.
Everyone plays like a horrible beast going around a board game, and you got to get 6 keys, and the keys allow you to do other things and all that. Meanwhile, you have a VCR, and I suppose maybe in some of the later editions it was the DVD player going.
Oh, it's one of those. Okay.
And you have you start to you press play at the start of the 1 hour, and the figure comes up and he does stuff, and every time he like assigns you like, who's the oldest one amongst you? It's like, oh, look at you, you're so old, you're practically dust. And anytime he calls you like the old one, you got to come up and go like, yes, my my gatekeeper, and you got to do as he says. So if he says something like, you have to discard a key, well, if you had a key, I could discard it, and you have 1 hour to get all 6 keys for you, and then get into the center, and then you pull a card from the center, and each one's like at the start before you actually press play. Everyone writes down like one of their fears, and you shuffle up the the graveyard things, and that's put in the center. And at the very end, you get into the center, and then you pull the card, and if it's your fear on it, you discard all your keys and start again. So you basically, there's no chance of you winning this game.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not your one, then you got to hit stop on the VCR, and you've won the game before the stroke of midnight, because you start at like 11 p.m. sort of thing. And if you don't do it in time, then the gatekeeper wins and everyone's doomed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very cooperative, very interesting gameplay that way, sort of thing. So I'm imagining this being something similar, a time limit to get these people killed, everyone working together.
Yeah, okay. Now, would you have personas, or would you not even, like, why even have sort of, like, I'm picturing a board with, like, an inner board and an outer board, like the inner board being that and the outer board being, I don't know, the lab or something, the offices or whatever?
We'll call it the compound.
Okay.
You move your characters or around the compound, getting cards, and like you land on this square, you activate this switch, and then all of a sudden you like open up a passageway between these like areas, like the black room underneath versus this room here, and the meadowy glade sort of thing, like is now open or available, or is an ideal setting so that you will lure the people out to these areas.
Okay, so yeah, I'm picturing like Office Space, like, oh, now I move 5 spaces. Oh, I land on the file cabinet. Okay, let's see what tax files are in here. Okay.
No, it would be much more sinister. In which case, it would be like you'd hit personal archive studies where these people have been researched beforehand, and that allows you to manipulate one person into moving to a different location. And if they're isolated locations, well, then that's where the monsters wind up going to. So I think that would basically be how that perspective of the movie would be played out from like the active participants being the people in the compound.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it would be rather hard to do as a tabletop thing unless you're effectively like round table DMing for everyone. If we all got to set this up, okay, I want to have this going on here. How many points is that going to cost us, to work up? And then you set up the scenario and you got to force it to play through.
Yeah.
Okay, they weren't stupid enough last time, so you've got the chem department. You're playing chem department? Okay, I need you to get things doped up, and we need to get these people stupid. So I need you to find a way to dope up their food, to put, brain-numbing chemicals in the person's, hair dye, and we need to taint their weed so that, they can't really notice what's going on. We really need them out of that so that they make all the wrong decisions. But how many points is that going to cost us? Do we have enough resource points to go off and do some other things here, like set up this and that? And so that would be interesting perspective, but very, I think, niche in that case.
Okay.
So then, who is the players? And that's what got me thinking is I think I would much rather play a thing with the Buckner family, the murder, torment, pain zombies, as opposed to the people trying to survive. Oh, what did we ever do to deserve this? What? I don't care. You are target. And okay, so I'm a zombie, and this is my impractical but lethal weapon, and I'm going with that. And we got to move on in and do this whole thing together. We got to work as a team, guys, because we're zombies. We're a little slow. We got to work and use our strength, to kill these darn teenagers or college students. I don't think that was officially stated, but it seemed as though like a sociology major was one, so that'd be like third year university, somewhere in the early 20s.
Yeah.
So no meddling teenagers in this case. We'll just call them the young adults. The college students in this case.
Okay.
And I was thinking, well, why is this more entertaining for me? Why would I prefer playing that game? And then it occurred to me it's because these characters, the Buckner family, they have a purpose.
Okay.
With the kids there, the young adults, they're it's like, oh hey, yeah, let's get stoned, get drunk, and have a fun time partying. And it's like that's rather hard to work as for a plot. Like what's your motivation? Well, booze and and getting nookie. Woo! Like, killing a bunch of kids at the cabin in the woods. Well, you know what? That sounds like a motive to me. These people go, they do something. Yeah, there's your motive. There's your action. There's something to do.
Okay. Yeah.
And then last night I was also watching a movie called The Thing That Could Not Die, and it was about a disembodied head with magical powers. You look at it, it gets you in its gaze, and you are hypnotized by its powers, and you do its stuff. And I'm thinking, well, who's the player in that scenario? Is it like the people that live on the ranch where this head was found? Maybe, kind of. On the other hand, I could see it as being like you are a disembodied head. There are so many active participants on the board. You have to keep your profile low while trying to hypnotize as many people as possible and help them locate your body before you attract too much attention. And it's like, well, I wouldn't mind playing that as like a solo sort of gaming concept, right? That sounds like it could play out as like a one-on-one tabletop experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so the concept I've encountered this week is being reactive versus being proactive. And because I've noticed a few people saying, I really like to write the villains in my stories because they do stuff. They go out there and they get stuff done. And they're much more proactive. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, heroes are fairly reactive. Mostly because what a hero wants is what society usually gives. Very few heroes are like, I want to cause anarchy, and then they're like anti-heroes at best. Society's nice and placid and calm, and the hero wants a nice, placid, calm life.
Well, I'll just actually say about that the hero, the hero archetype is that you tell a story from the hero's perspective, and therefore you do start in a place of where the hero is sort of relative calm, or they're at home with mom and dad, or at home somewhere. They're in a place where they don't necessarily have to move. They don't have to do it. They're happy. They have enough food to eat.
They don't have to change the world.
Yeah. and then something imposes on them, and they're like, oh, okay, now I gotta, or they learn some fact about the world that they didn't know before, and then, oh, now I gotta, that's the call to action or whatever, and then they refuse the call, and then they overcome the threshold guardians and anything. But anyways, what I'm thinking though is the villain has a parallel story, but that's the prequel. That happened, like, that's Darth Vader's story. That happened beforehand. And in his story, he had a sort of a complacent life. Oh, I'm a complacent guy. Something happened in his complacent life to disrupt it. And now he has gone out to do villainous things in order to change the world. And then our story begins with the hero. So it's a sort of overlapping of cycles of stories. Is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if I explained that.
So then the hero does his thing and inspires another villain to counteract back and forth?
Yep, exactly.
So then Buddha had it right. The best thing you can do is nothing at all. Don't make waves.
Well, no, because there's the Taoist concept of the unmoved mover, or is that the...
Yeah,
anyways,
the center of the cosmos, that which moves but is yet unmoved.
Yeah, you can take action but still be... This might be like from the Bhagavad Gita in that you're not moved necessarily by passion. You just take the action that you have to take.
I don't know if I fully believe that. I've always found that you cannot interact with anything without in turn being interacted upon. Physical forces, or you can't go out there and teach kids how to read without learning something about yourself and learning what it's like to learn these wonderful new things like reading. Learning to read is awesome. It's like, oh my goodness, all these books are open. There's so many stories that I could read forever. Haha, stories for everyone, forever. And it's like, that's an amazing concept just to see that, and like when that hits in a person's head, like, oh, I can do it. It's like a key, and like turns a lock, and all of a sudden a door is open. It's like, oh, awesome.
I guess, yeah. So in a way,
yeah, you can't teach a person to read without in turn learning something yourself. You cannot make change without being changed.
Yeah, which goes to show that you're connected, and you cannot disconnect yourself. Yeah, from your surroundings.
You are part of it. And so I don't know about this unmoved mover concept, if that's really a thing, or if it's just like.
Well, it's an idea, because there is a kind of action where.
No reaction occurs? I don't know. That sounds suspiciously unscientific.
That's not what I was going to say. There's a kind of heroic action where the hero is like, I could get mad about this, but I'm just going to sort of do it calmly and it's like being centered, being meditatively, in a way, it's detachment. It's that.
I don't know. I kind of prefer the concept of the master statistician sort of thing. Aha, I cannot do something without in turn being changed myself. But every time I make a motion, I in turn change to become exactly what I want. So it'd be you ever see a show or something where every time a person tries to I strike you down, the person just keeps on getting into a much more favorable position every time. Every action you make against them only winds up serving to make their plan go further to fruition. And it's I hate that person. When you're everything you try and do to bring a person down only makes them rise up further, and you're this was all a plan. If I had just done nothing, they would have done nothing too, and then they wouldn't be up where they are.
Yeah, it could be.
I do respect the concept of the person saying, "Oh, you had this planned out. This is exactly what you wanted all along."
Could be. I'm picturing a person though, there's two different kinds of actors. There's this actor or agent or character, I guess, who sort of goes along with the wind. He becomes a part of the wind of history or fate is flowing one way, and he's okay, I can deal with that. I can thrive in this as long as I sort of become a part of it. And so he turns maybe does some small little adjustments here and there, but basically
becomes the tumbleweed of time and fate.
Yeah, he's just going along with the flow and becoming a part of the river or whatever. And then whoever's up against him, it's oh, okay, nothing seems to work for me.
That is the concept I do like about Taoism is the notion that once you're in sync with the universe, you are unstoppable. And that's a powerful concept.
Yeah, and I sometimes I think of that in terms of like technology and stuff. Like, oh yeah, I could fight and rail against all the new technology and get super scared about it. But
that darn new iPhone 6, they're saying it's all fresh when it's really stuff that's been out for years. How dare they all rail against that thing? It's
like that.
Just whatever. Man.
But the thing is, like, it's gonna happen. Like humanity's going to roll on, and the Earth is going to roll on.
People will try and sell you an old product and tell you it's new.
And yeah, you can't really stop. I don't want to, like, people call it progress sometimes, but it's just the march of time. Just things happen, things change and become other things.
Deep.
Yeah.
Deep.
or maybe just too simple, but.
And so in that case, the person who is proactive is going to be like more in tune with, as opposed to reactive, who's fighting against.
Well, no, because like as far as a character goes, sometimes you enjoy a character who like has to sort of stand against that flow, or like be defiant in some way.
Be the rock in the stream that alters the course of the river.
Yeah, and sometimes it works out. Like sometimes that's the resolution of the story. It's like, oh, they figured out and they've made a new like dent in the universe. Or sometimes it's just another lesson they learned. Oh, I can't stand against that force, and I get blown away by it. But maybe I can counter it over here, or something like that.
Or it's like I can't stop it, but sometimes there's a lesson to be learned about still standing up, even when you can't stop it, simply on the principle thereof.
Yeah.
There's some deep lessons going on there.
Yep, and that's the hero who fights the losing battle, or who fights overwhelming odds.
Because he doesn't want to be the person who was never a hero because they abandoned their morals.
Yeah.
So how's that old saying go? Is life isn't just a continuation of living; it's the death of ideals. Those who stick fast to their ideals wind up dying earlier for them.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, that's kind of a pessimistic view, but it does have a nice poetic quality to it, I think. But,
yeah, it's one way to look at it. But yeah, did that get off track a little bit?
A little bit, but I think it provides an interesting concept there between the proactive versus the reactive.
Because that family, they have goals. They can be, the Buckner family. They
can... Death, murder, zombies.
They can have their own story. I wonder,
They technically did have a wee bit of a story in there, describing, their horrible practice of pain outliving the flesh. I don't believe that's true. But you know what? They came back from the dead, and so far I have not. So within this context, I'm willing to grant them extra leniency on pain being a force of the cosmos, because they came back from the dead somehow. From bad Latin, too. They didn't even need good Latin. Say, Lovey?
So I'm wondering, when do you think their story begins? Like, what is the they're in a place of complacency, or they're living in a world where they're relatively, or it can be for a short while.
I don't know if it was ever fully complacency, because they were always fighting to prove their faith, and that's why the one what's her face, Anna Patience Buckner. Like in that one thing, she says she wants to prove her faith like her brothers did on those travelers, but she just hasn't had the opportunity, and she just doesn't like it as much as the one who gets, as the saying in there goes, a husband's bulge from the torture.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was a weird but funny line. And in the end, one of the things she proves for the pain is that. My left arm has been cut off and I hope this is legible, sort of thing. So, I don't know if they hit the same level of just calm and complacency that, the hero starts off with. Because they were always working for it. Maybe that was for them, the first half of their story arc, is that, they try and prove themselves, to such a great extent they wind up killing each other off, and then I don't know how they got the last of them buried, but they all got buried and killed and buried, and then someone speaks the Latin, to their spirits, and they come back, and that's their chance to really prove when the limitations of the flesh can be, circumvented.
I like that. I like that the thought of death as being that, that setback in the story, like partway in the middle.
I don't even think it was much of a setback for them. I think that was, like a planned thing, because that's why she had the Latin sort of thing in there. It's just a way for them to transcend the flesh and really focus on giving much more quality level pain than a normal human can inflict.
Okay, so what was there, like, did the family as a whole have the same goal, or did they each...
the entire family had like a worship practice of pain. Mm-hmm. They had like an interrogation room. They had the black room underneath where they torture and kill, travelers and each other, sort of thing. It was I don't fully understand it because one, there wasn't 100% of the information given as to their religious perspective. And, also because I think they were really freaking nuts, and it's kind of hard to understand people who are that insane. So, It doesn't always have to make sense when you're insane, right?
Yeah, probably not. I was reading the TV tropes page on Cabin in the Woods the other day.
Good stuff.
And, yes, it was good.
Hit the wiki sometime so you get a list of all the monsters that they've come up with.
Okay, I will. One of the things that was mentioned, I think it was the sort of the dubious section, like some people thought the trope applied, but some people didn't.
Your mileage may vary.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
It said that Cabin in the Woods suffers from the "I wish this was a different story," or "I wish this story was about this other thing" trope. I can't remember the name of the trope now, but.
No, I think it worked very well as it was.
Well, yes, it did. But the thing is that the commentary that I saw on TV Trope, just basically repeating stuff off of TV Trope, but hey, that's cool. The commentary was that there were several, like, the whole idea behind the movie was that there were all these different stories that could have been told, and they're all pretty good. Like, there's.
I wouldn't mind if they had made sequels, each one being the previous year, where they use a different monster.
Yeah, and so they had.
Some of them, of course, you couldn't go with. They had that one little ball the guy was moving around with the click, click, click stuff. Mm-hmm. If he had clicked it that final time, he would have summoned Fornicus. The entity of pain and sexual torture and all that, which is a very clear reference to the Cenobites and Pinhead. In which case, because it would have been cost prohibitive for them to actually bring him in, use him and mention him as such, they had as they call it, an XP. They effectively brought in, like, wink, wink, this is completely independent, even though it really reminds you of the character. Wink, wink, lament configuration. Not all those stories could have been told because they were allusions to stories that already had been told.
Well, yeah, like basically borrowed from other movies. But
in which case, you could set up like find out how many movies you could have this effectively, connect up with, and then just, have a great big, we're doing a movie night. And then we're going to watch all these movies, and then we're going to finish it off with Cabin in the Woods and to explain all of them together in one universe. Shared universe, woo!
I wonder, they could technically think of some reason to do a Cabin in the Woods too.
I actually did figure that one out last night as I was watching.
Okay.
The two people that survived to the end, the Fool and the Virgin, had to die before sunrise. Otherwise, everything in the world is slowly and excruciatingly killed by the gods that once were. I noticed when the giant flaming hand bursts up through the cabin and starts smashing things, it's not yet sunrise.
So they're the first ones to die?
They did not live past sunrise. Technically, the monster hand that stirred and woke killed them both. Provided the Fool dies before the Virgin, it's all good. That hand coming up is all that happens, all that happens. I mean, all those monsters are loose in the area, so there's a heck of a cleanup crew going on with that one. But you could make a very legitimate argument that the initial thrashing of the gods that slumbered below killed them in time to prevent the world from being destroyed. Don't know if that was intended, because Josh Whedon has stated this is the triumph of his work, where in other works people have hated him for killing a beloved character, whereas in this one he kills off everyone on Earth. So I believe he did intend that to be apocalypse now sort of situation. But in the background was not sunrise, so there's your loophole. Mm-hmm. So if you want, you can do Cabin in the Woods 2, Or you, as I said, you can cycle it backwards. So instead of being
prequels,
like, each successive number being a prequel sort of thing. In which case it would be interesting. So I wouldn't mind going back to the summer of '98 when the chem department messed up there and see the story that they were alluding to in that one. What's going on there? I'd like to know. Like Cabin in the Woods 2, summer of '98. Yeah, there you go.
They should call it they should number movies like -1 now. Now that prequels are like a thing.
Yeah.
People should just start doing numbering like this is Terminator -1.
Yeah, but then you start involving other notations in there, and you get absolute values or things like, is it +1 or -1? It's actually both at the same time, thanks to time travel. So this is just Terminator, full value 1.
Yeah, I have some books from Order of the Stick, which we have talked about before, about the D&D comic web comic. I bought some of the collected editions, and he has done some prequels, which he has actually numbered.
Start of Darkness,
Start of Darkness, Origin of PCs. Are those the only two? I think there's another. There's a 0 and a -1 and a -2, I believe.
Very nice.
Yeah, which I bought them all. I haven't bought the positive numbers ones because I've read all those stories because they're free online. So
on the other hand, sometimes websites go down, sometimes internets go down. It's kind of nice to have, and just to sit back, relax, and do some reading.
I'll probably at some point I'll get it, but I'll consider this like sort of plug on a podcast to be my contribution. That if the listeners haven't already, if you are listening out there haven't already got Order of the Stick, or it's free to read, online. So read some samples.
Thousands of comics now.
But yeah, buy the books because they're pretty good.
And the books, the prequels are not online.
Yeah, you can't get yes.
So yes, but yeah, it would be an interesting thing to go backwards through there. But there was a lot of monsters, and just every time I look at that, I gotta pause. I gotta see all the stuff that they've done, and that's one of the things I like about the little Wikia site that they've got for us. They got a list of all the creatures and how they might relate and what goes for what, what they might have alluded to. Also, I've been told there's an interesting novel edition of it. Like the novelization of the movie.
Someone wrote the novelization.
Yes, wherein if you look at the board when they're like putting their bets up, sort of thing, and they have that one kid, Kevin.
Okay.
Sort of thing. It's supposed to be like Jason, I suppose, right? But yet in the novelization, it's described like one scene with Kevin, wherein he rapidly removes all the blood from whoever it is that he's getting in a manner incredibly unrealistic and disturbing, but never actually describing how he does it. So I guess he's something else. He's worthy of having his own name there. He's Kevin. Somehow, some way, he can remove all your blood very quickly. Does he punch it out? Does he drain it out? I don't know. He gets rid of all the blood out of your body very quickly, though, according to the novelization. There you go.
Well, I guess if you burned a person, then
no, I don't think any fire was being described in the thing. It was just he removed the blood, oh hey, you've got we'll say like a splinter in your hand, and you pull the splinter out, right? It's like he somehow grabs you by your nose and pulls all the blood out of your nose or something like that. Like it was like a strand, like a bunch of rope.
Could you could you gelatinize the blood or something and then put
I don't know, maybe it's
that's gross. That's a bad thought.
Well, that's the thing is it's very open to like how the heck do you get rid of all the blood out of a person? So yeah, I guess that's one way.
Well, if you kill them, the blood no longer gets pumped. So if you just you could drain it like an animal.
But yeah, it's like the way it was like removed indicates it's a very much not natural process.
Okay.
So yeah, something to know.
Just get a Star Trek transporter or something.
Ooh, yeah. What if that's Kevin's ability? He's like a living transporter. It's like, okay, flesh into this pile, meat into there, bone over there, and blood gets pile number 4. Blah. Maybe that's what Kevin does. I don't know. Make it up yourself. Have some fun. Bunch of kids in the woods, they got to fight Kevin. What's Kevin do? You make it up.
Yeah. Well, I like that thought. There's more stories to be told.
A lot more stories. And maybe the concept wasn't that they are supposed to tell the stories through Kevin in the Woods. You make up a concept. You do your own movie for kids in the woods, and they get tortured by dragon bat or dismemberment goblins. You come up with it.
Mm-hmm.
All that's being shown there is the myriad possibilities of horrible ways with which 5 young kids can die.
Oh, Glee! I'm so looking forward to this.
Well, honestly, a good horror movie does not come around every summer. Good horror movies are wonderful little, like, delicious berries you encounter. Like, oh, hey, look at this. It's a strawberry in a little patch, and you take a little bit. That's the sweetest tiny little strawberry I ever had. And it's just the one. And then you go to the market, it's like, I want strawberries now, and you eat the big strawberries. Like, they just don't have the taste. So, the real good horror movies, they come around every once in a while. You got to enjoy them.
Okay.
And so that's why you should take glee at the concept of so many great potential movies out there yet to be made about how horrible, people can die in an isolated situation.
All right.
There you go. Oh, yeah, man. I actually wouldn't mind seeing them, somehow manage to get a sequel out there and actually put the merman out there, the mermaid sort of thing.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Bloody it was, messy, but I wouldn't mind seeing it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they had one that was listed on the board as giant. I don't think I can recall any horror movie where, like a bunch of giants come in, we're Nordic, we're dangerous giant people. We shall kill you, crush you, and grind your bones to make our bread.
Did the giants not show up in any of the recent Thor movies? Has there been 2?
They were Jotun. 2 Thor movies. They're called Jotun. And they're like ice giants and fire giants out there. But it's not the same thing as like, trying to pick on the god of lightning as it is 5 stupid kids in the woods.
Was there a giant? I don't think. You remember? Did you see Puss in Boots? The version that they did after Shrek.
No, I missed that one.
Okay. I don't think there was a giant. There was a giant beanstalk and a giant. Like,
they had that Jack and the Beanstalk movie recently, but that's much different because
I guess they're not horror movies; they're adventure, like kids movies.
Well, in this case, the action sort of stuff is like, okay, I potentially stand a chance against maybe a giant, maybe 2 giants if things are going right, maybe depending on how you count it, 3 giants if one of the giants has 2 heads. Do you count it as 1 person or 2? Maybe you can get 3 out of a total fighting like those giants. No, when you're doing the horror sort of thing. The unfairness level of it is so great that it's almost hilariously fun, which is how I think a lot of people do enjoy a horror movie. It's like, this is so imbalanced.
Yeah.
It's like you are just a bunch of stupid people trapped in the mall against the zombie apocalypse coming at the doors. I mean, there's no way you can win just by sheer numbers. Come on.
Huh. Yeah.
And maybe that's the thing. Maybe people like seeing that. It's like, oh, it was a pretty close fight there. Either side could have won. It's like, no. It was only ever given Freddy Krueger was going to win. It was only ever given that, Jason Voorhees was going to hack up a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Maybe that's the reason some people dig it. Whichever way you like it, though. But, yeah, the scene there where all the stuff, they did show a giant in there, or at least a female giant.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember seeing the stuff, like all that. Most of those scenes there, just a person in there, they had everyone coming up with ideas. Like, hey, you got an idea for something that could be shown in one of the boxes? Write it on a slip. We'll see if we can put it in.
Mm-hmm. And
so they, every day, like 6 people for each of the 3 size categories of boxes. Go in there. Go do something. Make it happen. And then they put it all together for that one little scene that most people just kind of, and then blank out and miss a lot of.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. But you know what? Those who pay attention get the extra bonus.
Sure.
They're rewarded, and I fully approve. In which case, from the perspective of the Buckners being the protagonists, would the room full of all the monsters in the system, would that qualify as showing like all the potential characters you can create to kill these snot-nosed brats in the woods?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, if the Buckners represent the players in this case.
Yeah, okay.
Then would all the room full of all the monsters represent all the potential characters you can create within this fictional setting? You want to be a werewolf? Here's a werewolf for you. You want to be an evil, soul-sucking mist? There you go. You just want to be a giant, wield a tree like a club and smack people into paste? Go for it.
I still don't understand. The Buckners are playing the game, and they're...
The Buckners are the players within the game.
Okay, so they each get assigned a character?
Or, the 4 people or so sitting, around the table. Each one gets to play one of the Buckner family. They are the players, not the kids going out to party in the woods.
So the Buckners are playing the game, and
the Buckners are the players.
They each have one has a werewolf and one has the...
No, in this case the Buckners are the Buckners. Everybody's playing the Buckners. The Buckners are the PCs.
Uh-huh.
It'd be like saying, okay, we're going to, you guys can roll up, whatever class you want, but you all have to be family members. This is going to be a very tight-knit D&D group. And so it's like, okay, I'll be Jebediah Buckner, and I like using a bear trap, on a chain for my weapon, haha. It's like, oh, I'll be, Patience Buckner. I'll be really stealthy and silent. I only have one arm.
Mm-hmm.
And so they wind up cobbling up together. Who are the Buckners? In this case, they're this family here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to kill 5 NPCs. They have speed, but you have stamina. And
so now they're fighting the other you're fighting the kids.
People, the real people that would otherwise normally be seen as the players.
Yeah, okay.
It's like, okay, I really want to kill the stoner tonight, guys. So let's see if we can set my guy up so that I'm the one who delivers the final blow.
Okay, yeah, sure. That sounds like a good way to play.
You see the room full of monsters, and that's like, oh, well, if you didn't want to play your zombie, zombies that worship pain, as a family together, maybe you guys want to be, like a small pack of werewolves that are attacking the area. Doesn't that seem like a reasonable in air quotes monster to attack a bunch of people out in the woods camping? I think that sounds like a good movie to me.
Uh-huh.
So
every time you played this game,
you'd be a different monster. That shows like the grand repertoire of stock monsters you can use or have been created to kill the people.
And then you'd be fighting the same teenagers every week?
Or the same archetypes,
uh-huh.
Every week sort of thing. Maybe the DM goes over to the TV Tropes website and he starts reading up all the different stock character stuff, and so he winds up coming with a 5-man team, in which case it's you go a little atypical sort of thing. You don't necessarily need the jock in this case, but he still needs to fill an archetypical role for sacrifice.
Right.
Just to throw things up a little bit. Have a little fun with it. Or say, okay, I got a high-powered game for you this week. Your targets are going to be a bunch of, ex-military vets going out camping and relaxing. So they will be highly trained in countermeasures, and they will be able to beat you back and forth, so maybe you should consider something a little tougher this week. Something with a regeneration factor, maybe the werewolves, I don't know. It's like, no, man, I just want to play in the soul-sucking fog. I'm the only person who showed up this week. It's just the one monster against the group of 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, okay, since it's only one monster, I'll let you play on some of the higher tier monsters we got over here. So do you want to be the soul-sucking, fog, or do you want to be Fornicus, the Cenobite of pain and sexual domination? It's like, well, I don't know. It sounds kind of weird. I'll just be the soul-sucking fog. Whatever. You be the Sugar Plum Fairy, that little girl with a horrible face. Or be the dolls. They had the one thing with the dolls. It shows the mask. That's the little doll's mask, and then when the system's being purged, they have an entire family of 4 walk out. Mother, daughter, husband, and son sort of combo going up there. That's a 4-person party to me.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to be holding someone down and dumping gasoline on them, so I'm not exactly certain what their mode of operandus was, aside from being really creepy and silent. But whatever. Whatever plot you want, whichever way you want to kill, the targets of the week, go for it, right? But they're much more proactive in this case, because I gotta say, there's not a lot of, plot to work with when your concept is, I want to get stoned, I want to get drunk, and maybe I want to get a little bit of tail out here and have fun on the weekend in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, heck, if I had a bunch of players, want that as a concept, I would be very hard-pressed as a game master to come up with a satisfying role-playing scenario for that.
Yeah, as far as D&D, our traditional sort of games go.
Any type of gaming system, I think, I know.
Well, I mean, Fiasco might work with that.
Like what is it? Instead of attacking, and to reduce hit points, and helping that out, you gotta try and get happiness points.
Well, sure. I mean, if that's the game, yeah, make that the game. If that's what the characters are, if that's truly what they're going in for. Like, there's two ways to look at it. That can be a smokescreen. It's like, yeah, my character only wants, just to have fun and whatever, but, what I want as a player is I want something cool to happen. So, yeah, my character has a different motivation than I do, because I think
my character just wants to go and party in the woods for a weekend during summer break.
But I want him to kill zombies.
I want to try and fight zombies one-on-one for pain versus pain. Let's see who wins.
Yeah.
Say la vie.
So you can play and you can play either one of those games. You can sort of turn it into the social, the soap opera game where it's like, the four people in the cabin and they're mismatched or whatever, and they, like, romantically, and then they got to switch or what. I don't know what they.
See, I can see writing that as a story, but I see playing it as a game is very, very difficult.
Well, it draws on different things. Like, you wouldn't be able to use the D&D stuff because that's all about fighting and
combat system. You could rework it for romance, but it gets very aggressive romance that way.
Yeah, but
not very good quality.
There are game systems like Fiasco out there which sort of can. I mean, Fiasco also likes to turn things up and turn things dark and dirty and action-oriented. But it's also possible just to use those story beats on the interpersonal level. Just tell the story about these people interacting. So
I will say this, the concept of like a board game where the goal is to get as many like happy points, like there's a bunch of coins in the center, and you gotta get your happy coins out. Mm-hmm. But there's still some chores to be done. Someone's got to cook. Someone's got to clean up the cabin and all that. And that the chores that you wind up having to do to track that you have to put in your happy.
How about Shea Geek? Have you played that?
Shea Geek works very
because it has Slack points, right? You earn Slack points.
In which case, I believe some of the old cheap ass games, with the zombies, like Restaurant of the Damned, Give Me the Brain, work well, where you got to try and get rid of your cards. Once you get out of chores, hey, I get to leave work, hooray! Mm-hmm. As a nice concept that way. But so where the concept is you got to try and get the most happiness points out of the weekend, and so it's like.
Yeah, I'd say Shea Geek is the perfect game for that.
So then, from the purpose of the players, they are trying to play Shea Geek, but the other people are coming in. We're playing the Buckners, and we are playing very much D&D.
Sure. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if your actual like human being players who came to your house to play the game, if what they wanted was a zombie fight, then give that to them. I mean, I don't see. Yeah. I mean, unless you want to just surprise them and say, hey, we're doing this, let's just see how it works, because that's fun too. But generally, yeah, sure, they're actually looking for, even though they write on their character sheet like, I just want to drink beer and get laid.
I am a stoner dude, and that's the only name I've come up with for him so far. Or I guess we'll figure out a real name for him.
What they're actually looking for is that zombie fight. So yeah.
Well, I just find it, an interesting conflict of character versus personality, and what acts as protagonism versus reactive nature.
Yeah, well, that's also true that stoner character is not going to go out seeking adventure. Well, he might, I don't know, he might take some cocaine and.
Amazing rock to look at while I get high, man.
That's the other thing. Like, people sometimes take a drug and their personality like switches, or they say, "Oh, I should be." I feel different. I should be acting a little different, and then they might actually go out and seek adventure. They might try doing something.
As was whispered in there, go out for a walk.
Yeah, that happens in the show.
My mind is my own. You can't control me. Going out for a walk, which is a nice, hilarious bit of comedy. Sort of thing in that one. But yeah, I mean, just the concept of the Buckner family, in this case, playing the Buckners, is so much more objective-oriented. I find it easier to imagine as a game than it is to be for... Well, I suppose maybe if you were to really shake the cobwebs out of the, some of the World of Darkness stuff, because they had good socialization in there. You shake that out, put a whole bunch of sun in there, and instead of, a bunch of vampires being all melancholy in the city, it could be just a bunch of teenagers, having fun in the woods. You might be able to swing it with something like that, but still, there's just not a lot of systems set up for that. And so in which case, maybe that's one of the reasons that villains are so much easier to write about, because it's a lot easier to imagine and predict combat?
Maybe well, what I'm saying is
a lot of the heroes that you see. I mean, you don't watch a lot of movies. It's like, oh, okay, and then the heroes slaughtered everyone in their way until they got to the treasure room. And, it's like, no, Indiana Jones sneaks past this and that, tries not to hurt anyone, and then, he gets the idol, he gets out of the death trap-filled, temple and all that, and then there's a bunch of, the jungle natives, dude, they technically own the statue, and they are very unhappy that you've moved it and ruined all their carefully laid traps. Indiana Jones doesn't try killing every one of them before sauntering back to, the plane and all that, like you might imagine a person in a gaming scenario to try and do. He runs away. He is not out for the kill. Whereas, a villain sort of thing, it's like, well, he's in my way, I guess I'll just creatively slaughter him. And so it's easy to write a Dracula chapter, because Dracula, you know how he's going to, have a bunch of different ways to coerce or get rid of those in his way. Indiana Jones chapters are harder because unless things get really bad, he is not going to pull out his gun and shoot the guy.
Well, okay, so yes, a villain is easy to write up until the hero starts interfering, basically. So the villain, he's having a grand old time because he's got all the easy answers. He's got a path ahead of him. He's like smooth sailing to the end of the movie. All I
have to do is kill people until I get my way. I mean, how hard is this? Come on.
Yeah, so of course it's easy for him. And then the hero pops up, and he's like, oh yeah, swat down the. Well, he swats him down. He's like, aha, now, good. Now you're going to... I'm sure that you'll die when you hit the bottom of that ravine.
Killing is my motive. Killing is what I do. Why do you not respect that by just staying alive all the time?
And then he comes back a couple times. Yeah, so
disrespectful.
That's the complication in the villain's life, is the hero interfering. Because if there were no hero, there wouldn't be a story. It'd be a bad guy did a bad thing. He shot some people. Well,
I suppose you could always write a story where nobody's the good guy. It's all just a bunch of bad guys at each other's throats trying to kill each other as they want to get their evil way.
Yeah, I mean, we're using the term bad guy, good guy, but it could be, protagonist,
antagonist. If you drop morality from all sides of the thing, maybe it's a lot easier to write that way.
Probably, yeah.
Well,
no, actually, it's.
Do you recall any novel series where there is no good guy? You're all just following like a bunch of bad guys.
Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I think you got me on that one. That gets the golf applause. You got me quick on that. Oh, I guess that isn't easy to write then, because it's taken George Martin so long to write every darn book.
Actually, I would say even the bad guys are good guys in Game of Thrones, because you sort of like them and you sympathize with even the people who do very bad things.
There's no moral people. There's no immoral people. It's just a bunch of amoral people together.
Well, actually, no. Like, I think that it's really, like, it's complicated, but I think that the people in Game of Thrones do have quite sophisticated sense of morality and their own honor and ethics, but I think they're just forced with hard choices.
Allows them to stab somebody,
Well, they just think, oh, well, I didn't have a choice. Like spoiler alert, this is 2 seasons ago in the show.
Here's the big spoiler alert. Everyone dies. If you care about them, that only hastens their demise.
But yeah, Tywin Lannister, he initiates the Red Wedding because that would save so many more lives in a battle ahead of that. So he's like faced with this hard choice.
So it's the same choice that the directors have in Cabin in the Woods. They don't really want to sacrifice 5 kids every year.
Yeah.
And sometimes entire classrooms of kids, like over in Japan, sort of thing. They have to keep things going until they can find a better way out.
Yeah, and I think that's why, like, it can be easy to write a villain because you can say, oh, well, he's just a bad guy. He kills puppies for no reason, or kicks puppies, I should say. But
he has a brain disorder. He confuses them for hacky sacks.
But if you want to write a good villain, it's you give them that sort of inevitable, like, they don't want to do this, but they have no other choice, or it's the lesser of 2 evils, or whatever.
Or what they believe they're doing is the most moral of the choices.
Yeah, and that's not easy to write because you have to think of the scenario and you have to think, well, are they really, like, are they willing to do that? Like, put that mar on their own soul?
The Thing, the George Carpenter classic involving a bunch of people getting, like their asses handed to them in the Antarctic Research Station as Monster, takes over their bodies. In which case it starts off with MacReady, and like he's playing a game of chess against the computer. This is just at the start of his like long tenure down in Antarctica. It's got him in a checkmate, and he declares the computer to be a cheater and pours like a bunch of like whiskey into the circuitry, short-circuiting the computer. And and then that serves as like a motive excuse for why he decides later on, I guess, kind of spoiler, it's 30 years old, watch the movie, to effectively burn down the entire research Antarctic station in order to guarantee that this monster is killed. He has a scorched earth mentality. So why does he believe that, it's okay to burn down the Antarctic research station and doom himself and any other, like, non-monstrous, people to a very cold death? Well, that's his mentality. That's his weird character quirk that says, well, if I can't guarantee a win for myself, I'll make sure the other one doesn't win either. Scorched earth!
Yeah.
Whiskey in the circuitry, fire in the research station, mwahaha.
Well, have you read that, I think it's not any particular study, but there are actual psychological studies where they do studies on people, and people will spite another person.
Oh yes, that's a wonderful thing. It's a very well ingrained thing. It's not just people. Sometimes you can get animals to do it too. Mm-hmm. It's an action that hinders both the self as well as the other party. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the four corners, like for the Punnett square of like interactions: helpful versus helpful harmful, and harmful versus harmful. Mm-hmm. So you get beneficence for everyone helps. It's like, hey, cooperation. And then you get, being a dick, where what you do helps you out at the expense of someone else. And then you've got sacrifice, where what you do hurts you but helps someone else. Ants, by the way, are a great example of that. Most ants do not reproduce, even though they're female. Why? Because they get a much better reproductive potential with the queen doing nothing but making more babies.
And they're all genetically identical, too.
They're all effectively sisters and all that sort of thing. And so they sacrifice their reproduction for a much better trade-off for the other one. So that's their sacrifice. So that's a nice way of looking at it without saying, like, oh, yes, I'll work myself to the bone so you can, grow up, in wonderful schools or something. You can apply it to animals, too. And then you've got spite. Delicious, hateful spite, where I'm taking you down with me.
I want to see that in the show now, like kind of like what you were describing with the character there. But I want to see just somebody like sort of an otherwise good character just at some point in the just suddenly just, oh, I feel like hurting you, or something like that.
I do believe there's a classic Daredevil storyline where the Kingpin finds out, spoiler alert, the Daredevil is actually Matt Murdock, the blind lawyer. If you didn't know that, I ain't sorry. And so what he does is he sets out to systematically destroy Matt Murdock's life. He takes everything away from him. He's the one who, I believe, hires Bullseye to kill Elektra, his lady love, the star-crossed lovers and all that sort of thing. He takes everything away from, Matt Murdock. And that's when things go horribly, horribly wrong for him. Because he finds out a man with nothing left to lose is a man without fear. And so Daredevil comes at him with a vengeance never before seen against, him. And that's one of the ways he gets his nickname, the Man Without Fear.
I see.
Yeah. And so as I've been told, it's a very great arc of spite. Like, I've got nothing left to lose, so I'm going down, but you ain't going anywhere else but down with me.
Interesting.
So I think you might enjoy that if you can find it. Probably trade paperback. You might have to give a little bit of a search to figure out which one that is.
I wonder if we have that built into our psychology.
Yes, we
probably do. Because, like, as kids, I guess, growing up, we learn this, I guess, from brothers and sisters or other kids, that, like, you probably shouldn't screw somebody over because even if they have nothing to gain from hurting you back, they're just going to hurt you back.
Why did you break my toy? Well, you broke mine.
Yeah, exactly. Right. There's no, So I guess that's, and then it can go to a different scale when you get to adults, and it's like, why did you kill my brother?
Why did you sideswipe my car? You were trying to pass me doing 150 on a double line. Of course I'm going to rub the side on there. I'm going to force you into the other side of the way there, into the parked cars. Why?
Of course.
Yeah, because nobody gets ahead of me while I'm driving on the road. Horrible road rage spite, I suppose.
Yes, indeed.
If you want to write a short story, there's your idea for the week. Write a horrible short story about road rage.
Well, did you ever watch that road rage movie where it was a huge demon truck? We're at 90 minutes, just 93.
Oh yeah, I think that's a Stephen King story.
I think it sounds like it. Like it's just a guy driving on the road, and I think he might have done something to piss the truck off.
No, what I believe is it's if I'm not mistaken, a preacher who winds up leaving, for going off to someplace else, and Satan in the form of a monster truck is attacking him.
Okay, yeah, and that's the whole movie, right? It's just one movie, just
Stephen
the truck
King
chasing
writes
him.
the best stuff like that, doesn't he?
Yes, yeah. Okay, yeah, so we have been going over 90 minutes. I want to mention our social media, facebook.com/The Simulationist. You can send us email, all of your great horror movie ideas or other thoughts, or even just random thoughts about nothing in particular. We're not picky. TheSimulationist@gmail.com is our email address. And we're on youtube.com/The Simulationist. You can find us on Stitcher by looking us up on there, and please, if you find us on iTunes, there's always the reviews. You can give us as many stars as you feel like we deserve. And you can follow me on Twitter at Spaceboot1, Spaceboot numeral 1. Do you have any social media?
No, I'm asocial.
The Facebook page, we're always on, kind of checking that periodically. I gotta...
From time to time.
Yes. And anything else? Yeah. Final thoughts on...
You got to give the character something to fight for. Whether the villain or the hero, they have to find something to fight for to get them to move. Otherwise, they're just taking random actions, and that's really hard for readers and other players to get into. It doesn't make sense, and if it doesn't make sense, you can't connect up to it. No, well, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's my bottom line for this week.
Yep. Well, yeah, I'd agree. I think motivation is important. I think I laid out in my cyclical, the villain has a cycle and then the hero has a cycle starting somewhere in the middle of the villain cycle, and then you could have another villain. You could have more circles after circles after circles.
You can keep killing off the hero, and that way it's okay, because another hero rises to take the place.
Yeah, I think that would be a good story. Yeah.
I wouldn't
good
mind
world.
seeing stuff on that. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I guess we're done. Yeah, that's all.
Take care out there.
I've been Josh Treleza.
I've been Ryan Kirk.
Sandman.